Shalom, everyone. We're doing, I believe, now our fourth update in one each week on Israel, the IDF, the situation with Syria, Hezbollah, and in Lebanon, Gaza, Judea, Samaria. And today, Gilla Treibich is with me, and possibly Roy will join us at some point. We believe he's in a Hanukkah celebration, right, Gila?
Right, with bereaved families, with soldiers, with bereaved families, families of soldiers who were killed from the Barak Brigade.
Right. You know, we had a few months ago, we had Rabbi Yehuda Glick here and his wife, and they work with the widows and the orphans. And you know, it's a time to especially remember them, and it's a very, very good thing to, you know, support that work. And I'm really glad to hear that he's doing that. I believe in the last program or the program before, he indicated that in the Barak Brigade alone, there have been 17 soldiers.
Yes, it's really pretty incredible what's happening. I haven't been following the statistic well enough, but it's more than hundreds, I think, more than hundreds of, besides the 1,200 that were killed on October 7th. Yeah, I haven't been following the statistics yet. It's just too hard to take.
At every base, there's a special place. Now, a lot of people over the years have been to Israel with us. And we used to go on every trip until they changed the rules. We used to go to the military bases, and primarily we would go to the Barak bases. They were the unit that we really worked with. But there's a room that's called the Mereshit Karav room, the memorial room. And, you know, for myself, I love going to Israel. And I love going to Israel, and I love going, seeing all the sites, being among the people and everything. But what that brought home to me is there has been a great price that has been paid for the people of Israel to live and to prosper, and for people from all over the world that believe in Israel and the God of Israel, and to go and to see these sites. But it didn't come free. And there's a price to pay. And that's kind of what these updates are about. The last year and 3 months, it's been a fight. So, Gila, what's been happening lately?
Well, they're still fighting in Gaza.
Yes.
I believe that just last night we had 2 soldiers killed, and it's like so, you know, it's so horrible, it's so terrible. You see the newscast, and there's a formula. The army has released the names with the permission of the family, and then you have the names, and it's always every guy is like a whole world, you know. They have a wife, and they have children, and they have parents, and they have grandparents, and it's disastrous. It's really terrible. But they're doing well in Gaza. Altogether, they're doing well, because Gaza is split in 2. Because Israel is in control of the border with Egypt, so there's no smuggling of weapons. The one thing that's still very difficult to control is the humanitarian aid. And what's happening, there's about 300 trucks coming in every day, and they're pretty much robbed by Hamas. It's hard to understand why, but our army is not coming up with a good formula for somebody reliable to distribute the humanitarian aid to the real needy families, rather than keeping the Hamas in control and keeping them in power. And that's one of the reasons why we're not seeing the hostages. There's still over 100 hostages that they're keeping, and then endless negotiations. But they are not about. I mean, the last stage, they're refusing to give the names of the hostages that are alive. That's where it's stopping. And the reason they can do it is because they have plenty of supplies. They're not wanting. They're okay. They want to keep in power.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Lebanon, the army's still there, still clearing. There's been a ceasefire, but they're still clearing some of the villages on the border. And the
When you
eyes
say
are
clearing the villages, explain that better. What are they doing in clearing these villages?
the Hezbollah that was completely financed by Iran. That was the main branch of we call the Iran the big octopus.
Yes.
And it had branches that because Iranians are smart. They don't want to fight. They want everybody to fight for them.
Right.
So they supported the Hamas so that it comes on the Israel's south and west border. Then in the north they had the Hezbollah. Hezbollah was the most powerful. Now some of you, I think, Joe, you still remember the days when South Lebanon was a friendly area.
Oh yeah.
Before 2000.
Right.
Right. Because in 2000, our prime minister decided they call it there to leave Lebanon. It was just, we just ran away. And it had a bad effect. But anyhow, after Lebanon had no more Israeli soldiers, after South Lebanon had no more Israeli soldiers, the Hezbollah literally took over. Little by little, they infiltrated all the homes. What the Hezbollah would do is they would build homes for Shiite Lebanese. There's a minority. There's a Shiite minority in Lebanon. You know, Lebanon is a complicated country because it has several minorities, and they don't always get along. Each one of them always wanted to keep in control and keep doing their own thing. What the Shiites headed by Nasrallah, by the commander Nasrallah, their whole purpose was to close in on Israel from the north. So they would build homes for people, but with the stipulation that one room will be a launching pad, and every house in the bedroom, especially in the nurseries, you find weapons, you find missiles, we find launchers. Every single house. It is just crazy. Same thing was true actually about Gaza. Every house that soldiers went into had weapons, had missiles, had launchers in the nursery. You had a nursery with all the toys, with everything. Under the bed, there was an opening of a tunnel leading to one of the terrorist tunnels, and it was all full of ammunition. So, in other words, there were really no civilians. There was no such thing as innocent civilians. In Lebanon, it was the same, but it was even more sophisticated because they dug very long and very deep tunnels. These tunnels were much harder to dig. Gaza is sand, Lebanon is rock, but they dug these tunnels, and everything in the tunnel was ready for a long stay. They were all equipped full of food, full of ammunition, full of armor, whatever they needed. And the idea was to just have an orchestrated attack, like what Hamas did on October 7th, have the same thing also from the north. In a sense, you can say that the Hamas saved us. I mean, as horrible as it was, the plan of the Iranians was to orchestrate the same kind of an attack, same kind of a penetration, both from Gaza and from Lebanon, from both sides, and close in on Israel. I mean, Israel would have dealt with it, but it would have cost us a lot of lives. And now every village had that. And what the army is doing one by one, finding the tunnels, finding the homes, and blowing it up. I'm sure they're not finding everything, but they find the
Yeah.
most. So that's what I mean by clearing the village.
That has to still be a dangerous job.
I beg your pardon?
That still has to be a dangerous job.
Oh yeah. It's a dangerous job. We have a ceasefire, but once in a while the Lebanese try to shoot. It's getting answered in a very, very severe way.
Well,
But
let me ask you something, Gilla. You mentioned they put both in Gaza and in Lebanon. This is Naples, by the way.
Okay. Hi, Naples.
The that they put these things in the baby's room.
Mm.
Why do you think they put them there?
Because they know that the Israelis don't attack schools, don't attack nurseries, they don't attack children.
Right.
And Hamas or Hezbollah have no qualms by sacrificing their children.
Okay. Now, earlier you and I were talking before we went live, and you mentioned the number of hospitals that are in Gaza. How many did you say?
There's about 50 hospitals. Israel found about 50 hospitals.
And now Gaza
for a population of about 1 million, for a population of about 1.5 million people.
That's unreal. And
yeah, it's not. They're not hospitals. They were terrorist bases.
Right, and that's what because they know that if Israel attacks, then they can come out and blame Israel, and we see that happening all over the place.
Right.
I read an article about the Gavati brigade, infantry brigade, that they went into northern Gaza. There was a hospital called the Indonesian Hospital. They called everybody that they had a cell phone number for, then sent text to say, we're going to attack, evacuate the area. Okay. Before the attack came, they sent the soldiers in who evacuated the medical staff, the patients, and all non-combatants. And then they made their attack. No country in the world does this. But if you look at the news, you see what the United Nations is saying, you see what the World Court's saying, what the various governments in Europe and Africa and all over, they're blaming Israel of this genocide. And they have switched Israel here was the victim. They made Israel to be the aggressor. And one of the reasons I want to bring this up is people need to know the truth, and the people that watch this broadcast, they need to be able to say that. It's very easy to check out whether what we're saying is accurate or not accurate, but be a voice. We hope that you'll support Israel and that you'll support them financially, but you need to support them with your verbal support. And we've got to make a stand against anti-Semitism. Okay, what else is happening?
Well, the big news in the last week was that the Houthis from Yemen. First let's go into Syria. Syria was the main lead for Iran to arm the Lebanese, to arm Hezbollah. Iran pretty much controlled Syria, and through Syria, they would send weapons by land, by planes, whichever way, in tunnels. They would send just innumerable amounts of weapons into Lebanon. Israel tried to attack these convoys. They always did some. Now, once the Syrian government fell apart, the first thing Israel did is bomb all the bridges, bomb all the roads, bomb all the airports, so that nothing can go in. I mean, the Iranians admitted that they lost the supply road that they had from Syria. Now, so that's another branch in the northeast. Now, the Iranians did another arm of the octopus, and that was all the way south of Saudi Arabia. Now, you see, Saudi Arabia is an ally of the United States. Right. There's U.S. naval bases, there's your bases in the Red Sea, and that's why they couldn't do anything there. But Yemen had a Shiite minority. They're called the Houthis, and they were armed by the Saudis. Now, can you see Yemen on the map? And you see Yemen north of it is Saudi Arabia. Then you have the Red Sea. On the other side is Egypt, is Sudan, right? Yes. And part of Africa. Now notice that the entrance to the Red Sea down in the south, it's called the Strait of Bab el-Mandab. It's very narrow. And that's what the Yemenites, and that's what the Houthis control. Ships that come from the Far East, you see, like way from India, from China, in order to get to Europe, in order to get to Israel, in order to get to any place on the Mediterranean, have to go through the Red Sea, through the Straits of Bab el-Mandab. Then they go up. And Corey, can you point at the Suez Canal? Do you see where it is? It's at the very edge. Eilat is down. Yeah, you see Eilat, and then you see the Suez Canal connecting between Egypt and the Mediterranean. Now, if you don't have that passage, you know, the Suez Canal was only dug out, it's an artificial canal that was dug out in the 1800s. If you don't have that, if you don't have access to the Red Sea, because the Houthis bomb the ships that go through the Bab el-Mandab and who try to go to the Red Sea, either to Israel and Jordan, right? Israeli ports of the Red Sea are through here. They have to go through here. And for example, all the automobile import for Israel, all the import that we do from the Far East goes through the Red Sea. The other branch that goes to Europe goes through Egypt and through the Suez Canal. If you don't have that, Corey, can you go out, show us the whole of Africa? Yeah, you see, you have to go all the way around to the bottom, to the south of Africa. That's called the Cape of Good Hope. Then you go all the way up north, and then you go through the Strait of Gibraltar, and that's how you come into the Mediterranean. Now, look at how much longer that is. That's probably 20 times longer, which makes shipping much longer, much more expensive, and sometimes people just give up on that shipping. In other words, the Houthis control international maritime business, and they cause tremendous trouble by literally stopping it sometimes. Now, the Saudis have tried to fight the Houthis unsuccessfully. The Houthis were on the terrorist list. Unfortunately, one of the first things that President Biden did is take them off the terrorist list. So they could get money, they could get aid, they could get humanitarian aid, and they could get a lot of weapons. And they became more and more powerful. Now they've started also attacking Israel directly. That's a new thing that happened only after October 7th, because that is when Iran woke up, this branch that they had with the Houthis. Up until now, they were bothering the U.S. bases, and they were bothering Saudi Arabia, and they would bomb sometimes their oil refineries. That causes tremendous damage, and of course rises the price of oil rises right away. Now they started attacking Israel directly, and they send ballistic missiles, which are huge missiles, to Israel. In the last week, every night there was one ballistic missile that they shot at about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, which means that 1 million people or more had to run at 2 o'clock in the morning to their shelters, to the safe rooms, and wake up in the morning like zombies. And today Israel did a major attack. It's a very serious attack, because it's 1,200 miles from Israel.
Yeah, I was noticing on the map that is actually closer to Iraq from Yemen.
Oh yeah,
it is to go from to reach Israel.
That's true.
And so the Israelis attacked by jet.
Yeah. They had to. There's
so-
no other way. There's no other way than to attack by jet.
Right.
But you have to refuel, and
Right.
it means the planes are in the air for a lot of hours, and it really mobilizes a big part of the Air Force.
Right.
But they attack the ports, they attack the supply routes. I doubt that they got everything, but we'll see. Last night was the first quiet night. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay. So we've got. What about Judea, Samaria?
Oh, constantly. Judea and Samaria is. I think that Barak has forces in Judea and Samaria as well. I know that they're in Gaza. I know that they're in Lebanon, and I believe they're also in Judea and Samaria.
Right.
They're just you just have to constantly go. We call it in a kind of a facetious way, mowing the grass. You
Yes.
have to constantly go and attack the bases in places like Jenin, Tulkarm. It's okay, Corey. You can take off. I think the map. Okay, they attack the terrorist centers. It's Hamas and it's other terrorist organization. A lot of what we call the Palestinian Authority is also terrorists. And the army just goes in there, goes to Nablus, Nablus, which is Shechem, goes into Jenin, goes into Tulkarem, and everywhere. And just every night, you hear about terrorists being attacked and terrorists attacking. So it's like endless. It's really like the whole world is against us. That's sometimes it feels like that.
Okay. Now the situation has changed in Syria with the. I don't even know that a name has been given for them, but I know that their leadership was affiliated with Al Qaeda and also ISIS.
Right.
And so these aren't good guys.
No.
No, these.
Now they wear suits now.
Yeah, they wear suits, but they've got a track record, and the only real stabilizing force in the entire Middle East is Israel.
Right.
And the world needs to recognize and support Israel in this fight, because this terrorism is spreading, and it has to be dealt with. Now, the Israeli army, in our last few series, there's fear that what happened in Syria is going to spread possibly to Jordan, and there's big preparations to be ready in case that were to happen. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course. Now there's a new big power looming, and that's Turkey. They're trying to get into Syria, and we're not really sure what's happening there. So.
Right. And Turkey has become hostile to Israel, at least in their statements and so forth.
Right. It's still up in the air. We have a feeling that when there's a more a vocal government in America,
Yeah.
not the Turks will be okay. Yeah.
Okay. There's some great needs right now, and these needs. This is the time we have to address them. There are needs for equipment for the reserve soldiers. The reserve soldiers, the reserve units, are not being dismissed to go back to their homes and pick up their jobs, but they don't have the equipment that they need. And so we're asking people to support Israel. You can go to the David Fund. You can scan the little, never can remember what they're called, but the little code. Barcode. And it'll take you to the JerusalemTempleStudy.com David Fund. That the money that we get from that is going to the soldiers in Israel. There is no overhead. Every bit of it goes, and it's to buy equipment right now because the fat lady hasn't sung yet. We've still got hostages that have to be released. We still have fighting in Gaza. We have soldiers in Lebanon. There are soldiers in Syria. There are soldiers in Judea, Samaria. And right now we need your help. And so this is Hanukkah. This is a time that we remember the great victories of the Maccabees, but they rose up at a time when it was needed. And we have a time that it's needed right now. And Gilla, we're just about out of time. Anything you want to say before we close out?
Well, we just wanted to say the soldiers thank you tremendously for all the help that you've given them. If you can have it in your heart to help some more, it will be greatly appreciated and really save lives.
And
thank you.
Hopefully Roy will be back with us next week. We'll have some video and some pictures to show you. All right. Shalom, everyone, and happy Hanukkah.
Shalom.